plan. Packers Steelers. Here we go. Passing attack. All right. You guys know I'm very, very conservative, right? I'm all about run the rock, control the clock, don't get too aggressive. This feels a little different. I'm going to explain why. All right? With the Steelers' pass defense vulnerable, the Packers should unleash Jordan Love in an aggressive aerial attack this Sunday. Ranked 21st in EPA per dropback, allowed at a positive 0.11. Pittsburgh struggles to disrupt timing routes. They also ranked 17th in yards per pass attempt allowed at 6.6, inviting big plays against coverage lapses. Love should look to put Pittsburgh on their heels early to set up the run game, being prepared to see mostly middle field closed looks. Okay, what do we mean by middle field closed? If you look at the coverage that they run, guys, they run cover 3 34% of the time. That's middle field close. That means single high safety, and you got 2 deep thirds with the corners, depending on what cover 3 you're running. So essentially what you're doing is you've got a 3 deep look, and then you got everybody else underneath with a typical 4-man rush. 34% of the snaps. That's called middle field closed because the post safety is playing between the hashes. Now, they run cover 1 man 28% of the time. Okay, that's also known as middle field close. So when you total those up, 28 and 34, what is that, 62? 62% of their snaps on defense is typically middle field closed. All right, so you got to be careful and don't read man and throw into cover 3. That can get you in trouble, right? Now, what can the Packers do to combat that? You could go a number of different ways, right? You could have Dobby working on the boundary X and work in the middle of the field, right, in case they do to go to some kind of specific cover 3 look. Also, what you can do, I was thinking about this earlier, if you go with like a Trey Wright look and you run flood concepts, you may be able to force them out of a normal cover 3 sky, cover 3 buzz, and get them into what we call a cover 3 Mabel. Cover 3 Mabel was specifically created to take away flood concepts. A flood concept is when you're attacking the sideline at 3 levels, the flat, the out, in a corner typically, or a go if you're in a true, tray set. So with that being said, you've got a multitude of options to attack through the air. I want to say be careful, be aggressive. How do I say this? Be aggressive, but don't be cocky. Don't be arrogant. Don't be reckless with the football, right? Be willing to take the check down, but look to pass early and often, I think, in this game is what it feels like. And I know people hear that and they probably think, man, they got TJ Watt, they got Cam Hayward. I got you. The numbers are showing, guys, a combination of EPA per dropback and, like we said, and yards per pass attempt allowed at 6.6. They are middle to bottom third in terms of pass defense. I really do feel like we should attack through the air. And again, if you jump out to an early lead, Tim, then fall right back to the run.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like you said, if they're going to run middle field close looks, hit up the boundary sides as often as you can. We saw Jordan do that a little bit last week against the Cardinals, and he found some success. And like you said about, don't read man and end up throwing into the teeth of a zone. We saw Jordan get away with a couple of those last week as well. I don't think you can do that against the Steelers defense, but I will say that I agree with your premise of maybe this is a pass to set up the run. It doesn't mean get away from the run and don't have a run game and just chuck the ball all day. It means pick your spots and take those 5 to 7 yard runs or 4-yard runs when you can mix them in. But if they're going to look dead red, middle field close, you've got to attack the sidelines and the outside. And I think we can. We've seen Jordan do it time and time again. So.
Yeah, and one thing that's mentioned here, Jacob, Nick McSwain mentions in the chat, Ramsey is bad at man. Let me give you guys a specific stat on Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, that is. Jalen Ramsey's allowed 2 yards per coverage snap when aligning as a wide corner this season. That's 4th most in the NFL with a minimum of 50 coverage snaps, okay? He's getting torched as a wide corner. When you go to 11 personnel, he kicks in as the nickel back, the star position, right, in the slot. He has allowed it says he's also allowed 3 touchdowns from that alignment, talking about outside, tied for 6th most. However, when aligned in the slot, he's allowed just 1.1 yards per coverage snap, nearly half of the 2.0 he's allowed out wide. So what's the point there? Jalen Ramsey plays a lot better in the slot than he does outside. So maybe that along with Matthew Golden being banged up, Christian Watson on a snap count, maybe you do press into 12, keep him on the boundary. Jacob, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you if there was a way to attack that defense better with tight ends rather than trying to worry about what the wide receivers are doing. I agree to that. It's kind of shocking, those Ramsey stats, because everybody sees him as being this kind of shutdown corner based on the name and the title. I kind of agree with you. If you were going to have 12 personnel, am I crazy? You guys can tell me in the chat that I almost would rather have a Fitzpatrick over Musgrave, especially if it's a more physical game.
Yeah,
I don't know what
I
you
agree
guys'
with
thoughts are on that. I mean, I honestly am kind of upset that they let my boy Ben Sims go, but Fitzpatrick just
I was
whenever
waiting.
it was that last game of the season when we saw that weird at the time, it was kind of an out of nowhere healthy scratch for Sims and put Fitzpatrick in. Ever since then, it's been like they haven't looked back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love the way that Tucker plays the game. We know what we're going to get with him. Just him doing anything and everything we ask him to do, no matter where he catches the ball, he's gonna just put his head down and barrel through at least 3 or 4 tackles, get you another 7 to 10 yards. I think Fitz is kind of made in that same mold. I would love to see us personally in a little more 12 personnel. And then to Tim's point, I think it's easier to pepper in some really heavy runs out of those formations too.
Yeah.
So if you can, like you said, set up that pass and then all of a sudden just start pounding it down their throats with Jacobs and the 2 big boys on the outside. So, because I think honestly, when I think about it, I'm worried that that's what they're going to do to us with Washington on the opposite side. That's literally what I'm more afraid of their offensive game plan.
Yeah. Tim, you got anything else to add to that, brother?
I think it just makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm with you, Jacob. I wasn't super happy to see that Ben Sims got the boot. Kind of like him, especially his blocking ability and things like that. But I will say this about Fitzpatrick: I think he's slightly underrated as a pass catcher too. You think you're going to run press into 12 and you want to go pass heavy. You're thinking Tuck Norris and Luke Musgrave. Obviously, you're pass catching tight ends, but we should not sleep on Fitzpatrick. I think he's got decent hands and brings a little bit more of a complete tight end package than we might have thought initially, which may explain why he's still on this roster and Ben Sims is not, in order to keep the extra kicker around. So I like the approach of getting into those 12 sets and passing and running out of them for that matter.
Yeah. And again, when I mentioned, come out and attack through the air, it doesn't mean you just completely neglect the running game, right? And this could be a really a key part of the game plan. The Steelers also have struggled to stop the run so far in 2025. They currently rank 20th, allowing 4.4 yards per rush attempt, with the last 3 games breaking the 4.6 mark. Okay. Green Bay's running game has been picking up, averaging 4.5 yards per rush in the last 3 games. The Packers should not get too far away from the run with Josh Jacobs now leading all NFL running backs. I repeat, Josh Jacobs leading all NFL running backs in PFF grade at 83.1, especially if they jump out to an early lead. Again, use the pass to set up the run, jump out to an early lead, and then just lean on them all day long, man, with that running game. Because, again, as we pointed out here, it's kind of surprising, Tim. It really is because, Pittsburgh is usually they're known for their defense, right? We just talked about their kind of middle of the pack, lower third in terms of pass defense. And then you look at their run defense, and they're sitting in the 20 spot, man. So, and again, the last 3 games, they've given up 4.6 yards per carry. That's 0.2 yards more than the season average. And in their last game, they got smoked off the
ball. Bad.
6.2 yards per rush attempt allowed. So,
yep, absolutely. It's going to be close. Either way, it's going to be a close game, I think. We talked about this earlier in the week about, kind of like our defense and Pittsburgh's defense. We both know what they're capable of, and we've seen them at, the kind of the top of the top. But we've also seen them kind of crap the bed and look like a defense that we haven't recognized at times. And I think Pittsburgh is probably more guilty of that than we are on the defensive side of the ball. So we've got to do everything we can to exploit that for sure.
Definitely. So, again, you see right here, Josh Jacobs leading all NFL running backs at 83.1 offensive grades. He's got an 81.6 run grade. Look at the fumble grade, guys. 89.0, protecting the football, man. It's absolutely huge. So, Bijan Robinson is second. Najee Harris is third. Cam Scatterboo is fourth. How about that? Kenneth Walker, the third, fifth. Jaylen Warren is sixth. Jaylen Warren plays for the Steelers. However, when you look at one of the reasons that Jaylen Warren is grading out so well, it's not showing up here. Obviously, the fumble grade's good too, but his run grade's only a 73.2. He is catching the ball out of the backfield. Aaron Rodgers is checking it down to the running back early and often. I don't I don't worry about that too much because I love the way Bullard attacks the flats, and I love the way Edgerrin Cooper attacks the flats as well, and Quay Walker too. So I feel like that's one of the strengths of our team. If anything, the weakness is if we are going to come out, jump out to an early lead, and play over the top, that Aaron's still got the arm strength to thread the needle on those outs and stuff, right? So working the underneath game outside of the hashes, I could see him going that route as well. So, so the next key here on offense, protect Jordan Love. The Steelers defense could get hot at any moment, and if they do, it will be because of their pass rush. Matt LaFleur has to make sure Jordan Love gets the ball out quick so studs Cam Hayward and TJ Watt don't hit home with the pass rush. Alex Highsmith is another edge defender who is due a big game. And I didn't even mention Urbig. Urbig is unbelievable, if that's how you say his name, out of Wisconsin. He's off to a strong start. He's grading out like a 92 on PFF, and it's like over 200 snaps. He's actually one of the Tuesday players we'll wrap up with here in a minute. So, again, you got to protect Jordan Love. And when you look at it on the surface, just insert – I don't know why PFF did not put Nick Urbig in there, but picture him on the other side with a 92 grade. I think it was 92 if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Picture him on the other side where Highsmith is, TJ Watt on one side, and then Cam Hayward work in the middle. We've got to protect Jordan Love. That ball has got to come out. So when we say attack through the air, guys, it doesn't mean 5-step drop and throw that thing 80 yards. It just means come out throwing the football and get them on their heels early.
Yep. Great icing on the cake is that Jordan Morgan is proven to really be great at pass pro from that guard position, which makes sense. He's a natural tackle, so he's kind of coming into his own, playing at the right guard spot and right on time if we need to get that ball out and keep Jay Money off the turf, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Left Coast Cubby asks a question here, Jacob. He says, I understand what Tuesday player means, but what is the origin? The first time I heard Tuesday player was Bill Belichick talking about it. And what that means is they would come in each week, like let's say you play on Sunday, right? And this is just kind of behind the scenes, behind football, right? You play on Sunday. Monday, what happens, typically guys will come in for treatment and they watch the tape together. Everybody goes back through and you do kind of your film study session, right? So you're learning from your mistakes on Monday from what happened the previous game, right? You're kind of, here's what we need to work on. Here's what we did well. Here's the missed opportunities, right? Then on Tuesday, when you come back into the office, the coaches wake up on Tuesday morning and they're going, all right, what players do we really got to focus on stopping this week for this team? That's why they're called Tuesday players. So you meet with your coaching staff on Tuesday, the upcoming opponent, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, they're the game wreckers. All right, what do they do well? How does the team like to utilize them? That's where it came from. I first heard it from Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick would be the first to tell anybody everything he's learned it from someone else, right? Or everything he's implementing, he's learned from someone else. So that's where it came from. Left Coast Cubby. Thank you for the question, buddy. All right. Anything else on offense, Jacob? You want to add anything to what we just talked about with the pass rush? Are you concerned with them hitting home with Jordan Love, or do you feel pretty confident we can protect him?
I think on one of Ryan's prior podcasts this week, he did talk about how Highsmith is kind of having a down year. Watt kind of having a down year. Hayward, even though the PFF grade looks pretty enticing there, he's also percentage-wise, the guys are all kind of not getting home as often as they would. He did also reference that Herbig. That's not just a flash in the pan this year. He also came out, and I think he was like an 80 last year as well. Just absolutely kind of one of the most probably unsung heroes of the defense on most teams. So I'm a little bit worried about that. But to Tim's point, I feel like that if there's one thing that our guys do really well still on that offensive line, even though we've had a lot of shakeups, a lot of musical chairs, is that generally they all seem to pass block pretty consistently well. So in that aspect, I'm okay with it. I think that Queen and Wilson, which I believe that's Peyton Wilson, one of the linebackers we had covered, who was ranked pretty high on our board, who came out, I think, had a lot better season last year, and this year is kind of having a little bit of a setback there. But I do think that if we can get the run game going up the middle, it's going to be because we can exploit maybe some of those guys. I've never really been a big Queen fan. I know a lot of Packer fans were absolutely apoplectic when we didn't take him in the draft one of the years, right? So I don't know, man. I think that this defense has some holes that we can exploit. And if Jordan Love is just being a little more cool, confident, calm, doesn't force things, I think that there will be holes if he takes advantage of them. I think that the run game should open up as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned Peyton Wilson. We had a draft grade on him at 60.3. He was the second best linebacker in the draft 2 years ago, and he was 2 tiers higher than Edgerrin Cooper. So he is a player that he put it together last year. He graded out like a 75 last year. This year he's struggling, but man, he could, again, when you see a player struggling and they've shown what their ceiling is, or what they're capable of doing, you got to ask yourself, okay, when are they going to break out, right? Because they're probably going to be able to reach that level again. So anyway, that's going to do it for the offensive game plan. If you're watching this video back later, let us know in the comments what you would do different with that offensive game plan. What do you think about what we put together? Is there a player or two that we're overlooking? And how would you like to see the Packers attack the Steelers defense? Also, hit that like, hit subscribe, and click the bell icon so you're notified when we go live here in the future.